What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we keep talking about all of these classic systems, and it looks like there's another one showing up that actually kind of hits my nostalgia bone a bit, as I do remember the old days of PC gaming when I was much younger, especially DOS games. And we're going to talk about the PC Classic because it is real, and I can't believe it. It's very funny, too, to go over. We're going to go over that. We're also going to talk a bit about the Pokemon Let's Go reviews as they came out, and I think they're a bit higher than a lot of people were thinking they were going to be, because people were anticipating this game to kind of bomb in the reviews, and it's actually scored higher than some of the more traditional Pokemon games that were rated on Metacritic. We're going to talk about all of that. And as always, guys, make sure you like the video. If you like, it does help out, especially recently you guys have been liking it. It has been helping the different news waves kind of get put out there on YouTube. So thanks to you guys. Also, this is the last day to enter for that Pokemon Let's Go giveaway. It is linked down in the description. It's also the pinned comment for anyone who wants to enter. I want to get it done and out for, I guess, as close to release day as I can. So if you want to enter, you can do that down below. It'll just be over later on tonight, and I'll contact the winners and then announce tomorrow, hopefully, as long as everyone gets back to me. First, guys, today we're going to start with some quick news, and we're going to start with PUBG because it is coming to the PS4 December 7th. Surprise, right? Yeah, we didn't already know this was going to happen. Maybe they wanted to get this out there so, like, they didn't crash the PlayStation Store, since I'm sure everyone's going to be going to that. You know, if they announced it at the Game Awards and it came out the next day, they might have done some serious damage to that PlayStation Store with everyone rushing to play. Yeah, okay, no. It's not as popular as it once was, with other options like Fortnite and Call of Duty, even Fortnite just being free outright, and Call of Duty, I think, being a better version of PUBG, essentially, with its blackout mode. But still, for anyone who was waiting for it to arrive, it's not going to be too much longer, December 7th. We actually kind of talked about how it could be just kind of a release at the Game Awards. I guess they just wanted to announce it on their own terms, out in front of everything to get people ready. So there you go. December 7th, PUBG on the PS4. Also, we did get a release date for Battle Princess Madeleine. If you missed this was something that popped up on Kickstarter, kind of exploded on there. They raised all the funds they needed and then some, and then they spent some more time kind of working on it, polishing it, and it looks really, really cool. It kind of has a callback to like old school 2D hard as nails style at like platformers, action platformers. You're seeing some of the footage here. It's coming out December 6th. It's coming out to pretty much all the different platforms, and it's kind of built in the same idea of like a Ghouls and Ghosts or a Wonder Boy 3, The Dragon's Trap. It's a very classic looking 2D action platform. People were really excited because it's a really good looking game. I think it looks great, by the way, like the visual style and everything. It's actually coming out to all different platforms, Nintendo Switch. It's actually going to the Wii U, interesting. The PS4, the Vita, the Xbox One, and the PC. So there we go. Look forward to that December 6th, especially if you backed it. I'm not sure if maybe you get it a little earlier. Otherwise, though, you can pick it up at that time. We also got actual footage of Crackdown 3 running for it was like 40 minutes or something. There was some talking and stuff in there, but it was definitely a solid half hour of gameplay. And it looks kind of like what we were expecting to look like. You're seeing some of the footage here. And when I first saw this, I was a bit surprised by the lock-on. I do know Crackdown already kind of had lock-on, but this is a multiplayer against other people. The destruction mechanics look great. It doesn't look like kind of the mind-blowing next-gen that I thought it was going to look like, using Azure and everything, kind of using those server farms to do a lot of the computations for the system so it can kind of punch above its weight. But again, I'd want to be able to play around with the entire destruction mechanic myself rather than watch people try to do it in the way I would want it to happen, and kind of experiment and see what you can get out of it exactly, because Red Faction did a lot of really cool stuff locally, and this looks similar to that, to be honest. But there could be other aspects to it. I also want to see what the single player and the campaign is, but there was a good chunk of gameplay here, and you could check the link in the sources down below if you want to go back through and watch all of it, especially if you're looking forward to Crackdown 3. I would definitely check it out. Then with some of the quick news out of the way, guys, let's jump into some of the bigger stuff. We're going to start right away with Pokemon Let's Go and the reviews that are put out there. Currently, it's actually sitting at an 82 on Metacritic. And that's pretty good. That's actually better than a lot of people were thinking. I think a lot of people were expecting this to be like low 70s, high 60s or something, with the way people were responding to this game. And reading through some of the reviews, a lot of them do point to nostalgia as being a big positive for the game, kind of approaching Pokemon Yellow from a different angle. I will look at this and say, visually, based on a lot of the footage that was shown in reviews and some of the spoilers people are putting out there, because more people than you think are already playing the game, it looks good. Like, if this is what the 2019 Pokemon game looks like, yeah, I think they have something there. I think it's a great looking visual style for the Switch, and Pokemon, it's very bright and colorful, and the different Pokemon actually look very alive. So it's pretty good looking there. I also like the idea of the Pokemon being on the map, and obviously you can see them when you're running around. I think that's a good idea as well. And you saw the Metacritic scores. Some of the individual ones include Games Radar, for example, 4.5 out of 5, even IGN giving an 8.3 out of 10. And that 82 on Metacritic, if you kind of go down the list and look at the other Pokemon games, it's right there with them. Something like, for example, Pokemon Sun was an 87. Omega Ruby was an 83 though, and then like something like Pokemon Black version 2 was an 80, Fire Red was an 81, Emerald was a 76. However, things like Pokemon Y was an 88. So it seems to fit right in kind of the 80s, right where a lot of them are. So this isn't like being crushed by all the other Pokemon games. In fact, it's outscored a couple of them. So not as bad, I think, as a lot of people were expecting. I already know this is a controversial Pokemon game because it's not the traditional Pokemon style. And people are concerned that this is kind of the way that they're going to be going with Pokemon. I think there was an error in there as well. A few of the reviews said this could give us a glimpse as to the future of Pokemon. I don't think this is the future of Pokemon necessarily as their big flagship game. The 2019 Pokemon game, they're spending more time on it, I think, than this Let's Go series. Except I think the Let's Go series is helping them kind of build the engine and get it ready for the 2019 version when they go into Generation 8, things like that. This I see as a stopgap, right? It lets them sell a game and possibly bring in people from Pokemon Go, which is a massive fan base. I mean, we already talked about cell phone games bringing in a lot of money, and that's why so many companies are going to it. They're actually trying to pull people away, or at least over, from cell phones, right? They're not trying to take their console market and push them towards cell phones with this. They're kind of doing the opposite. So I feel like that's a good thing because that can only grow the user base for the Switch, grow the user base for the Pokemon games, and who knows, maybe that means that 2019 Pokemon, which a lot of people are already on board with anyway because it's Generation 8 and it's a traditional Pokemon, could be the biggest Pokemon launch ever just because they could pull in people from like the 800 million people that have downloaded Pokemon Go. They can just pull some of that over. They're good. Next up, let's talk about the Game Awards because we had full nominations and everything. There are a lot of different categories you can go through. The big one that a lot of people always want to vote on and talk about is the Game of the Year nominations. One of the games in here I think is going to surprise you, and I was pretty happy to see it there just because it's good representation for indie games. Because, I mean, it's a great game, obviously, but it's up there with the big ones that we all knew would be there. I mean, we already know things like Red Dead Redemption 2 and God of War would be there, definitely. But to see this game there is pretty cool. Here's actually the nominations for Game of the Year for the Game Awards. Spider-Man makes sense. Red Dead Redemption 2 makes sense. Monster Hunter World is a big one to be there as well because I don't think Monster Hunter's really ever been thrown into a Game of the Year conversation. See, that there is pretty good representation for the overall series. God of War, of course. Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and then Celeste. Celeste, guys, is part of the Game of the Year nominations. That is really cool. Now, Celeste, of course, was a really just an awesome game, and it got like 10 out of 10s from a lot of places. Highly rated game, so it makes sense to be there, but it's not a game that has the budget of something like a Spider-Man, a Red Dead Redemption 2, a God of War, even Assassin's Creed Odyssey. This is a smaller, definitely a smaller indie style game, but it's really neat just to see it there, even though it's probably not going to win, obviously. Like, let's be real here. I think it's going to come down to either Red Dead Redemption 2 or it's going to be God of War. I think those are that's like 1A and 1B right now. Most people are probably voting between those two, but Celeste is going to get some of that vote. And I don't know if they show the percentages of who voted for what. I'd love to see that just to see where Celeste places, because maybe it doesn't come in last place out of all the voting. Maybe it takes like the 5th or even the 4th slot. That would be awesome to see. So I hope they do show those, like just kind of the breakdowns just to see. But yeah, I'm personally going with God of War. That's my Game of the Year this year, especially off of the list that they provided here. Now, there are a lot of other categories. There's like RPG of the Year. You have Octopath in there with Dragon Quest XI. Again, 2 games I really liked, and I'm going to have to make a decision between those 2. But yeah, tons of categories to go through. Go check them out. We got Indie Game of the Year, Messenger's in there. That's kind of what I'm going with there. But let me know what you guys think about the Game of the Year list here and kind of where you're going. All right, guys, let's talk about this PC Classic, because is a very funny idea. Now, we have the Super Nintendo Classic, we have the Nintendo Classic, we have the PC Classic, we have the VHS Classic. Okay, I made the last one up. It seems the idea here is to kind of call the nostalgia bone of people who remember DOS-based games back in the day. We're talking like late 80s, early to mid 90s. That's kind of where we're looking. I mean, there are some DOS games that were pretty good in the late 90s as well, but they seem to just be going through that entire generation. And yeah, they did a whole video on it, and it's done by a company called Unit E. So not Unity, Unit and then just E. And the video shows a little box that kind of reminded me a bit of a Raspberry Pi enclosure. However, the ports are off. They don't make sense for it to be a Raspberry Pi, so it seems to be something that they are either getting like kind of just drafted up and put into a box and everything. But this is a company who's had experience with some electronic stuff. This is definitely their first foray into trying to build and sell something that would be deemed a gaming device like this, like a system. But it has two USB ports on the front. It has an SD card slot that I assume is supposed to kind of be a callback to the floppy drive that we would have there for like our 5.25-inch floppy that we'd pop in there. I remember playing Number Muncher actually back in the day at school on one of those floppies, which is pretty funny. You had to pop it in. You have a little lever that kind of went up, like just kind of clicked in like that to hold it in. Number Muncher though, get that on there. That'd be cool. But they're apparently going to be crowdfunding this starting next month, shooting for like mid-2019. By the way, if this thing comes out before the Atari VCS, that's going to make no sense at all, but they might beat the Atari VCS out. I always talk about the Atari VCS when we talk about crowdfunding because that raised like $3 million something and it should be out by then. But we know what happens to these things. They get delayed. Anyway, back to the PC Classic here. They're going to apparently have a bunch of games on here. According to their FAQ, the frequently asked questions, they're apparently going to have it packaged with 30 games, and they're going to sell little SD cards that have fully licensed, ready-to-go games that you can play legally, that you just buy from them. Now, they show things like Doom. Okay, sure. Apparently, they're going to be able to get the rights to sell that, I guess, from Bethesda. They say they're a Maryland-based company and have ties in Maryland, where, of course, Bethesda is, so all right, I mean, if we want to go that deep, can we get like Elder Scrolls Daggerfall on there? Is that a possibility? They do show them using a standard controller, which is exactly how I remember playing Doom back in the day. No, we used keyboard and mouse back then, but well, just the keyboard. You didn't really need the mouse because in Doom, you just looked straight and the bullets would just find the enemies in front of you. But does that mean we get things like Quake? I mean, there is a serious list of games that they could put on there. Just Wolfenstein, Earthworm Jim, although I have no idea who owns the rights to Earthworm Jim. That would be interesting to see. Quake, Myst, SimCity. Again, that's owned by EA though, so I don't know if that's possible. A Hexen and Number Muncher. We gotta get Number Muncher on there, man. That was an awesome game back in the day in school. But there's a lot of games out there that are also abandonware. For example, did you know that you can go online right now and you can download Jaws Unleashed from 2006 because it's abandoned and it's just online and just download. I know the game's not great, but it's from 2006 and you can just go download it. But that's where we are now. A lot of companies coming out, seeing the gold rush here with these classic systems and trying to tap into that. The PC Classic is really funny and I think it'll work. Yeah, seriously, I watched the Atari VCS get funded with no prototype. At least they're holding something and playing something there, and it's $100 as opposed to, you know, the $250 that it took to fund an Atari VCS, and that thing made $3 million playing off nostalgia. So $100, basically a little DOS box that you get and you can take with you. Yeah, it's probably going to get funded because they're probably not looking for anything crazy like what Atari was. So yeah, put it out there, see what happens with your crowdfunding. If it succeeds, okay, cool. Just make sure you deliver. And our last bit of news, let's talk about an original RPG that was announced by NIS, or Nippon Ichi Software, and it's coming to the Switch and the PS4. I like original RPGs, especially ones like these that look like there's a bit more time and work put into the visual style. When you think of NIS, you think of more like 8-bit, 16-bit, or even just low polygon games like even Ys 8. While I think it looks good, it's not like, you know, it's not like a Final Fantasy 15 or something like that. One game that looks, you know, like they put a lot of money into the presentation and everything. I saw this game and I said, wow, that actually looks different from a lot of NIS's other games. It's called Destiny Kinect. And here are some screenshots. It was actually shown in Famitsu, and it's due out February 28th, 2019 in Japan. Japan. So there's no word on when it would be coming out here in the US, but Nice is infamous for doing this, where they'll bring out a game in Japan and then like a year later it will be localized and move elsewhere from Nice America. But this was all put out in Famitsu. I like the look of it, actually. I think it looks fairly unique, and it looks like an interesting idea for an RPG. There's a lot of stuff they're trying to pull from Famitsu, trying to figure out what's going on there, because so far it's been a lot of teasers and everything. But I have a feeling, because we're coming up on the release date, being the end of February in Japan, Nice will probably show up with some more information, maybe even through December. It's very possible, or January they show up with a bunch of information. But this, again, just another JRPG to keep an eye on. It's going to come out in Japan first. It could also come out with maybe an English option, and the Switch is region free, so you never know, I guess. But either way, it's one to keep an eye on, because it probably will eventually make its way outside of Japan based on Nice's previous history. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit the like button, it really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it's the Pokemon Let's Go reviews. Are you surprised that it rated in the kind of the low 80s, like an 82? Are you surprised that it's that high? A lot of people were thinking, like I said, low 70s, high 60s for this game. Turns out it actually looks like a fun game to a lot of reviewers, so I'll be checking it out here, and we're going to take that Pokeball Plus thing apart because I'm curious what's in there. And also let me know what you think about the PC Classic. Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think it's a bad idea? Do you think it's going to get funded? Let me know about that down below as well, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.